कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे.
Shall we get started?
सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति. श्री गीता ध्यानम्. ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीं अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी. नमोऽस्तु ते व्यास विशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्रा येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवैत्रेकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः. सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्. वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं. भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला. अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरननदी कैवर्तककेशवः. पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम्. लोके सज्जन षट्परैरहरहः पीपीयमानं मुदा भूयात् भारत पंकजं कलिमला प्रध्वंसि न श्रेयसे. मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लङ्घयति गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्. यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र रुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदे गायन्ति यं सामगाः. ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः. देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः
Hari Om. Whatever is offered to Bhagavan by the pure-minded with devotion, he accepts. Hence, whatever we should do as an offering to the Lord alone, to him. Yat karoshi tat kurushva madarpanam. Bhagavan also says, I am the same to all. The evil, those who are temperamental, and those who are equipoised, or the Brahmanas. Just like the sun shines equally on all that is there as part of the universe, on everything, similarly, he is equal to everyone. The difference lies in the receiver. With our mind fixed on me, or with your mind fixed on me, Bhagavan is saying, being devoted to me, worshipping me, sacrificing to me, bowing down to me, the entire self taking me as the supreme goal. When one is like this, such a person, being steadfast in this manner, reaches me alone. So with this, we now move on to continue with learning about the nature of Bhagavan and move on to chapter 10. But before that, let's just set the context a little bit. From chapter 7 onwards, we saw that the focus shifted from the nature of the self to the nature of the Lord. And Bhagavan has given us the knowledge about the nature of the Lord from two perspectives or from two standpoints. The first one is about the Lord in his conditioned expression, the Sopadika Drishti or the Apara Prakriti. And the second is about the nature of the Lord without any conditions, without any limitations, without any associations. And that is the Nirupadika Drishti or the Paraprakriti. So let us just see some of the verses where he gives us an insight into these two aspects. And as we have seen earlier, when Bhagavan is giving knowledge about himself, we read about that in chapter 7 and 9. Chapter 8 is primarily about devotion. So in chapter 7 and 9, Bhagavan said, Rasohamapsu kaunteya prabhasmi sasi shuryayoho pranavah sarva vedeshu shabdak ke paurusham drishu punyo gandha prativyam cha tejaschashmi vibhavasau jivanam sarva bhuteshu tapaschashmi tapasvishu aham kraturaham yajnah swadhaham aham aushadham mantroham aham evajyam aham agniraham hutam pitahamasya jagatah mata dhata pitamahah vedyam pavitram omkara riksamaya jurevacha. So Bhagavan is saying so many things about himself. He says, O son of Kunti, I am the pleasant taste in water, the sapidity. I am the light in the moon and the sun. I am the syllable Om in all the Vedas. I am the sound in space. And I am the physical energy in people. I am the sweet fragrance in earth. I am the brilliance in fire. I am the life in all beings. And I am the austerity in the austere. And then he says, I am the Vedic sacrifice. I am also the other types of sacrifices. I am the offering to the ancestors. I am the food and medicinal herbs that are in the plants. I am the thought behind the hymns. I am the elements that are used in sacrifice. And the very action of sacrificing itself is me. I am the father of this world. I am the mother. I am the grandsire. I am the sustainer. And the only thing to be known is me. I am the purifier. I am Om. Also, I am the Rik, Sama, and Yajus. So these are his manifest conditioned expressions. So whenever the Lord says, I am this or I am that, it becomes his conditioned expression. The Sopadika. Sopadika Saha Upadi, along with his manifestation, along with his expressions, along with his natures. And then he also says in chapter 7 and 9, he says, Jiva Bhutam Mahabaho Yayedam Dharyate Jagat Matta Parataram Nanyat Kinchidasti Dhananjaya Mai Sarvamidam Prottam Sutre Maniganaiva Maya Tatamidam Sarvam Jagatavyakta Murtina Matsthani Sarva Bhutani Nachaham Teshvavastitaha Nachabasthani Bhutani Pashyame Yogamaishwaram Bhuta Brinnacha Bhutastaha Mamatma Bhuta Bhavanaha. So here he's saying about himself differently. He says, my higher nature, the very life element with which the world is upheld. He says there's nothing whatsoever that is higher than me, O Dhananjaya. All is strung on me as if or like clusters of gems on a string. All this world is pervaded by me in my unmanifested form. All beings exist in me, but I do not dwell in them. Nor do beings dwell in me. Behold my divine glory in yoga, supporting the beings, not dwelling in them, in myself, in me alone, bringing forth the beings, the cause of all beings, yet untouched by all of them. So these are his expressions that are free of all connections, free of all conditioning, free of all associations, free of all limitations. That Nirupadika Drishti, free of all his manifestations, his own manifestations. Now, what is the purpose of this kind of a presentation by Bhagavan? Why is he doing this? So let's quickly recollect that even as the second section of Bhagavad Gita, even as it gives us all the knowledge about the Lord, it also brings in devotion in us. Both these aspects are covered. Now, the Sopadika, which is with his conditioned expressions, that is for enabling contemplation or dhyana. That is the purpose of describing in a Sopadika manner, so as to enable contemplation. When there is contemplation or through contemplation, one gains Chitta Ekagrata. Chitta Ekagrata means single-pointed attention, single-pointed focus. On what? On Bhagavan, on the Lord. The Saguna Brahman or the Brahman with properties is in the realm of the senses. So it is possible to concentrate the mind, intellect and focus on this kind of a Brahman. However, in its extreme multitude is also very, very vast. So Chitta Ekagrata helps us comprehend this vastness of Bhagavan, this humongous vastness and expressions of Bhagavan. The Nirupadika is for enabling comprehension or jnana, through which what happens when there is comprehension and jnana, one gets Chitta Shuddhi. The mind gets more and more cleaner and purer. And Chitta Shuddhi is the ability to clearly see the aspects of Bhagavan. Clarity, that clarity comes through Chitta Shuddhi. And hence the Nirguna Brahman or Brahman without property, which is beyond the senses, that is deciphered much better when there is clarity, when there is Chitta Shuddhi. Because it is extremely subtle, being away from the senses, being not comprehensible through the senses, it is very subtle. And that subtlety is clearly seen when the mind is pure. Chitta Shuddhi helps comprehend the subtle nature of Bhagavan. So while Chitta Ekagrata helps us comprehend the vastness, Chitta Shuddhi helps us comprehend the subtleness. And together, both of this enable full, total, complete immersion in devotion to the Lord. So quickly, what did we say? Sopadika, which means with properties, for enabling dhyana. Dhyana results in or leads to Chitta Ekagrata. Chitta Ekagrata helps in comprehension of the vast nature. Nirupadika is for enabling jnana, which leads to Chitta Shuddhi. And Chitta Shuddhi then helps in comprehending the subtle nature of Bhagavan. And this ability to comprehend the vastness and the subtleness results in bhakti or devotion. We will see that later in this satsang also. So being both vast and subtle, Bhagavan's nature requires further elaboration. In chapter 10, Bhagavan again elaborates both his Sopadika and Nirupadika nature with a special emphasis on Sopadika, which is along with his manifestations. So his manifestations comprise of multiple beings, and at the same time is also glorious. Multiple is Vividha or Vividham. Glorious is Vishesha. Beings is Bhutihi or Bhavanam. Thus, Vividham Bhavanam or Vividha Bhutihi or Vishesha Bhutihi. That is Vibhuti, the yoga of divine glories or divine manifestations. So we start with Vibhuti Yoga.
Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Atha Dashamodhyayaha.
Atha Dashamodhyayaha.
Vibhuti Yogaha.
Vibhuti Yogaha.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha.
Bhuya eva mahabaho.
Bhuya eva mahabaho.
Shrinu me paramam vachaha.
Shrinu me paramam vachaha.
Yatte ham priyamanaya.
Yatte ham priyamanaya.
Vakshyami hitakamyaya.
Vakshyami hitakamyaya.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha. Bhuya eva mahabaho. Shrinu me paramam vachaha. Yatte ham priyamanaya. Vakshyami hitakamyaya.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha, the Supreme Lord. Which Supreme Lord? The Supreme Lord endowed with all these glories that we just talked about. That Supreme Lord said. And what did he say? Bhuya, again, O Mahabaho, O mighty armed. Reference to Arjuna, mighty armed. So he says, O mighty armed, listen to me again. Shrinu. Listen what? Me paramam vachaha, my supreme words. Which to you, yatteham, I. Which to you, I. And to you who, to which person? Priyamanaya, to you who takes delight. And to this kind of a person who takes delight in my teachings, I, aham, vakshyami, will declare. Hitakamyaya. Hitakamyaya, wishing your welfare. So Bhagavan says, again, O mighty arm, listen to my words that are surely supreme, which I, wishing your welfare, will declare to you. One who takes delight in listening to me. One who is delighted to hear me. So Bhagavan gives the following reasons for elaborating his teaching. The first one, he says, Paramam. Paramam, it is supreme. It is supreme because the nirguna is subtle and the saguna is vast. The subtle needs to be explained and the vast needs to be elaborated. And then Bhagavan says, I am saying this to you again because I wish your welfare, hita kamyaya, and through Arjuna, for the welfare of all of humanity. Whoever is a seeker. Welfare means shreyas. Hita kamyaya, wishing your welfare, wishing your shreyas. And Arjuna had asked the Lord specifically, if you recollect chapter 2 verse 7, Yachre yashyan nishchitam bruvih tanme. What is decisively good for me? What is decisively in my welfare? Please tell me. Arjuna has the interest. That is the third reason Bhagavan gives. He is a perfect student who takes delight in the teaching. Always the teacher also feels really good, any teacher, when the student is interested and takes delight in the teaching. Priyamanaya takes delight in the teaching. Repeated and comprehensive inquiry into the glory of Bhagavan that clarifies the understanding and promotes devotion. Both of these happen when we do it again and again and again. And as the grandeur, because this is glory, I mean, this is so glorious, this is so vast, this is so subtle. And as this grandeur of the vast and the sublimity of the subtle, that becomes more and more and more clear to us. The only things we humans can do is bow in reverence to this Bhagavan. We will see that also in the satsang today. So let us again rejoice in Bhagavan's elaborations of his nature as he continues. We go to verse 2.
Name vidussuraganaha
Name vidussuraganaha
prabhavam namaharshayah
prabhavam namaharshayah
ahamadirhi devanam
ahamadirhi devanam
maharshinam cha sarvashah
maharshinam cha sarvashah
Name vidussuraganaha prabhavam namaharshayah ahamadirhi devanam maharshinam cha sarvashah.
Prabhavam, the power of lordliness. What lordliness? My. Na viduhu, not known. Suraganaha, to the host of the Devatas. Nor is it known, na Maharshayaha, the great rishis. Why is that so? Bhagavan says, he, for, aham, I, adihi, the source, devanam, of the devas, cha, and maharishinam, the great rishis. Sarvashaha, in every way. The power of my lordliness, the prabhutva, is not known to the devatas, nor is it known to the maharishis. Because I am the source of, or the reason for, the devas and the maharishis in every way. Prabhavam has two meanings. One is the prabhutva, the power of my lordliness. And the second meaning is the various appearances, the multitude of appearances of mine, my origin. And Bhagavan says that even the host of devatas, even the maharishis, they cannot comprehend this. The knowledge is so vast that I have to elaborate it to you again. And why is it that they cannot comprehend? Bhagavan uses a very simple thing which science also says, by the way. Because I am the cause for all of them. In every way, sarvashaha. Every way, sarvashaha means what? We read about this. I am the upadana karana and the nimitta karana. I am the material cause and I am the efficient cause. Both. Every which way I am the cause. And what we all know very well is that the cause precedes the effect. So the after does not know the before. We can only read about the before. We can only listen about the before, but we don't know the before. And hence, they do not know me. The knowledge is so subtle that I have to explain it to you again. He said, Prabhavam, it is so vast, so I have to elaborate. And Adihi Sarvashaha, because I am the cause, both efficient and material, it is so subtle that I have to explain it to you again. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, and I quote, the divine breeze blowing from the ocean of Satchitananda, Brahman, transports people into ecstasy. Sanaka, Sanatana, and other ancient rishis get themselves perfected or got themselves perfected by this divine breeze. A mere glimpse of this ocean sent Narada into raptures. Sukha, the born Brahmagyani, touched this water just once and wandered the world as a divine lad. Shiva, the cosmic teacher, took only 3 sips from this great ocean and became dazed in transcendental bliss. Indeed, no one can measure the depth or the characteristics of the infinite ocean of Brahman. Unquote. So that is the vastness and the subtlety of Bhagavan, and that he is explaining to us. We'll continue with verse 3.
Yo mamajamanadim cha
Yo mamajamanadim cha
veti lokamaheshwaram
veti lokamaheshwaram
asammuda samarteshu
asammudha samartyeshu
sarva papai pramuchyate.
sarva papai pramuchyate.
Yo mamajamanadim cha veti lokamaheshwaram asammuda samartyeshu sarva papai pramuchyate.
Saha, one. Yo, who? Martyeshu, amongst the mortals. One who amongst the mortals, Veti, knows, Mam, me. As what? Ajam cha anadim. Ajam, unborn, cha, and anadim, beginningless. Loka Maheshwaram, the great Lord of the worlds. That person, Saha, asammudaha, undeluded. Pramuchyate, is liberated. Sarva papaihi, from all sins. One who amongst the mortals knows me as unborn and beginningless, as the great Lord of all the worlds, is undeluded and is liberated from all sins. Bhagavan describes himself as one anadim. Anadim, that which has no beginning, that which has no cause. So he says, I am the cause, both efficient and material for everything. But I myself, for me, there is no cause. And he says, Ajam, not born. Janma Shunyam, which means what? Which means eternal. So why does it have no cause? Because it is unborn. Because it has an eternal existence. That is why Anadim Ajam or Ajam Anadim, which has no beginning, which has no cause, which is not born. Eternally there. And he says, Loka Maheshwaram. Loka, the world. Maheshwaram, Mahantam Ishwaram is Maheshwaram. Mahantam because of his pervasive presence or vastness. That is the material cause or the Upadana Karana. And Ishwaram because of his lordliness, the subtle control that he exercises over all of creation, which is the efficient cause or the Nimitta Karana. See how beautiful all of this is, as it unfolds. So is Mahantam Ishwaram because of these two aspects, because of his vastness and because of the lordliness, the subtle control, the subtleness. In this way, one who knows me in this manner as the supreme cause which has no birth, which alone manifests as the master of everything, of all the realm. Bhagavan says, Samartyeshu, such a person among the mortals, asammudaha, remains undeluded, sarva papaihi, from all sins, pramuchyate, is supremely liberated. So while Bhagavan is mentioning all papas only, he also adds pramuchyate. This implies liberation from papa as well as punya. Sarva papaihi pramuchyate. Pramuchyate prakarshena uchyate or paramam uchyate, which means being liberated from the very cause that results in papa, and the very cause that results in papa also results in punya. So being liberated from that very cause. So while Bhagavan is mentioning only papa, it implies punya also, because the liberation is to whatever causes papa and punya. And in this manner, liberated from sanchita prarabdha agami karma. Liberated completely, fully. Now this cause and effect is a beautiful subject in science also. Actually, after so much of research, ultimately science comes back into this fundamental question. And it has not yet been able to answer that. So science says that the universe was once very small. I may have covered this earlier, but it is relevant here also, by the way. Okay. So small that it was smaller than the proton itself. And Stephen Hawking says, and I quote, "This means something quite remarkable. It means that the universe itself, in all of its mind-boggling vastness and complexity." I'm just pausing here. Mind-boggling vastness and complexity. Bhagavan says mind-boggling vastness and subtlety. And I continue with the quote, "can simply have popped into existence without violating the known laws of nature." That is the Big Bang. Do we need God to make the Big Bang bang? No. Science has a more compelling explanation than a divine creator. Remember, Hawking was also a skeptic, a great scientist and a skeptic. And that explanation is the cause and effect. Something that happens must be caused by something else that occurred earlier in time. Unquote. And I'm thinking, Mr. Hawking, that's what Krishna also said. And then he goes on to explain in a simple manner, just like Krishna did centuries earlier. Quote, and I quote, "So did God cause the Big Bang to happen? Imagine a river." By the way, Sri Krishna also in Bhagavad Gita has imagined all of this. What caused the river? Rain. Rain that fell earlier. What caused the rain? The sun is a good answer. It shone and caused water vapor to become clouds. What caused the sun to shine? In science, we have the process known as fusion, in which hydrogen atoms join to form helium, resulting in vast quantities of energy. Unquote. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, so where did the hydrogen come from? Stephen's answer, from the Big Bang. But didn't we start this entire sequence with the question, where did the Big Bang come from? So Big Bang, where did it come from? A sequence of what causes and effect of that cause, and ultimately hydrogen. What caused the hydrogen? Big Bang. So the circle is, what caused the Big Bang then? So science has not yet been able to answer this one question, which Saunaka asked Angirasa. And Saunaka asked Angirasa, what is the Mula Karana behind creation? Understanding which the entire creation can be understood. Unquote. Angirasa is the guru, Saunaka is the student. And Angirasa's teaching forms teaching in response to this question, forms the entire matter of the Mundaka Upanishad. And in a summarized form, essentially what it says is, the cause of creation is the truth of creation. The truth of creation is Brahman. Therefore, this is the answer to your question, Saunaka. Which is what? The cause of creation is Brahman. Those who know me, the cause of Big Bang is Big Bang. Those who know me, Bhagavan says, as Anadim Ajam Loka Maheshwaram, they are undeluded and are liberated from all sins. it is also said that the liberation that Bhagavan is referring to here is removal of all negative tendencies that are obstacles to the rise of bhakti within. And Bhagavan is here talking about bhakti. That is why this analogy. And in the next two verses, Bhagavan explains how he is Loka Maheshwaram and how bhakti develops by meditation on his sovereign power, which is the subtle aspect, and his multitude in terms of his auspicious attributes, which is his vast aspect. So he'll explain how he is Loka Maheshwaram and how bhakti develops by focusing on these two elements of his nature. So we'll recite verses 4 and 5 together.
Buddhir jnanamasammohah
Buddhir jnanamasammohah
Shama satyam damashamaha
Kshama satyam damasamaha
Sukham dukkham bhavo bhavaha
Sukham dukkham bhavo bhavaha
Bhayam cha bhayameva cha
Bhayam cha bhayameva cha
Ahimsa samata tushtihi
Ahimsa samata tushtihi
Tapodhanam yasho yashaha
Tapodanam yasho yashaha
Bhavanti bhava bhutanam
Bhavanti bhava bhutanam
Matta eva pradakvidaha
Matta eva pritagvidaha
Buddhir jnanamasammohah Shama satyam damashamaha Sukham dukkham bhavo bhavaha Bhayam cha bhayameva cha Ahimsa samata tushtihi Tapodhanam yasho yashaha Bhavanti bhava bhutanam Matta eva pradakvidaha
Bhavanti bhava bhutanam matta eva pritagvidaha. Pritagvidaha, different kinds, various. Various what? Bhava, qualities, states, thoughts, mental modifications. Bhutanam, of beings, pertaining to beings. Bhavanti, arise. Matta eva, from me alone. So all these qualities that we have, all beings have, of course we are part of all the beings, our mental states, our mental modifications, our opinions, our thoughts, our judgments, everything. All of that, different kinds, various kinds of this bhava that we have. Bhagavan says, they arise from me alone. And he gives 20 examples. These are samples. And he gives 20 of those in these two verses. What they are does not matter. There are 20 plus, like I said, these are samples. So there are many, many more bhavas. But where they come from, Bhagavan says, is me alone. All of them come from me alone. So what are these 20? Buddhihi, intellect, the power to understand subtle things. Jnanam, the wisdom that gives the power to discern the Atman. We are all reading about the Atman. The wisdom that gives us the power to discern that, to discern the subtleness and discern the vastness. Both of those. That jnana. Asammohaha, non-delusion, clarity of mind and conviction in action. So both the mental clarity, which is bodhavya, and conviction in action, which is kartavya. So knowing clearly what it is and doing with conviction what we want to do. Even in critical and trying situations, all through easy situations as well as in difficult situations. That type of a non-delusion. Shama, forgiveness when one is strong. Forbearance when one is weak. Control that is exercised through strength, and control that is exercised through acceptance. When one is strong, one has that strength. but you can't just go crazy with your strength. You have to exercise control. That is Shama, not just going berserk just because you have the strength. When you are weak, there is a chance that what happened to Arjuna, right? So Shama is that forbearance where there is control exercised through acceptance. Acceptance leads to forbearance. That is also a type of strength. Both of these result in a kindly attitude towards oneself and one's surroundings. Satyam, that is the fifth one, truth. Understanding the truth and then accurately presenting and representing the truth. Living by the truth, understanding it and living by it. What one has seen, what one has known, what one has experienced. Damaha, the sixth one, self-restraint or control of the sense organs. So the mind may have desire, but controlling the external sense organs from indulging, that is Damaha. Bahyendriya Nigraha. Bahyendriya, outward sense control. Bahyendriya, outward indriyas or sense organs, controlling them. Nigraha. Shamaha. Shamaha is calmness, controlling and quietude of the mind and intellect. So Antakarana Nigraha, inner control. So earlier it was the mind may have desire. Here, controlling the mind so that the desire itself goes in. Inner control. Shamaha. Then the eighth one, Sukham. Sukham, joy or pleasure. The experience of what is agreeable to ourself, to oneself. The manifestation of punya and spending that punya. That is Sukham. Dukkham. Dukkham is pain. The experience of what is disagreeable to oneself. Expending and exhaustion of papa. Bhava. Bhava, exaltation. The state of elation in the mind that is caused by Sukham. Bhava is also birth. Another meaning for bhava is birth and existence of all of creation. So bhava implies two things here. Abhava, depression, the state of mind that is caused by dukkham. Abhava also means ending, non-existence. Opposite of existence or being born. Then bhayam, fear. The misery that springs from the imagination of future suffering. That is fear. And abhayam, fearlessness, the absence of fear. Bhagavan here uses the term evacha. Evacha because sometimes he is saying bhayam, abhayam. Sometimes he is saying bhava, abhava. But he is not saying that all the time. Evacha here implies that inclusion of the opposites of whatever qualities he has mentioned. For example, he mentions only buddhi, it includes abuddhi. He mentions only jnanam, includes ajnanam. He mentions only asammoha, includes sammoha. So inclusive of this way and that way, this quality and that quality, everything. And he continues, ahimsa, non-violence. The avoidance of being the cause of pain or sorrow to others, to any other aspect of creation. Others doesn't mean only human beings. To any other element of creation. The 15th one, samatha, equanimity, the balanced state of mind in midst of all the happenings which may be desirable or undesirable. Tushtihi, contentment. And that contentment leads to a natural disposition which is cheerful. That is tushtihi. Tapaha, austerity. The change brought about in life habits through rigorous self-discipline and self-denial. That is tapas. Rigorous self-discipline and self-denial. Dhanam, beneficence. That is giving to others. That which contributes to one's own pleasure and joy, that which contributes to one's own enjoyment, giving that, not giving something that we don't want. Giving something which if I had, will contribute to my own enjoyment. That is dhanam. Also dhanam, we have to remember, giving at the right place, at the right time, to the right cause or to the right person. That is also extremely critical. That is the correct dana, not just giving recklessly. Desha kale patre danam. Right place, right time, right cause, or right person. Yasha. Yasha is glory or fame, the renown that comes from possessing good qualities. And also ayasha, the ill fame or infamy that comes from bad qualities. And Bhagavan says all these that the beings have, all these qualities, the good and the bad. So it's not that bad comes from the devil and the good comes from God. All of them arise from me alone. I am, because of all of this, I am Loka Maheshwaram, the Lord of all beings. What about other creatures? Here he's saying I'm Loka Maheshwaram, Lord of all beings. What about other creatures? Bhagavan now gives a genealogical synopsis of the universal population of everything, all creatures, in the next verse.
Maharshaya sapta purve
Maharshayas sapta purve
chatvaro manavastata
chatvaro manavasthata
madbhava manasa jataha
madbhava manasa jataha
yesham loka ima prajaha
yesham loka imah prajaha.
Maharshaya sapta purve chatvaro manavastata madbhava manasa jataha yesham loka ima prajaha.
Sapta, 7. Maharshyaha, the great rishis. And Purve, ancient Chatvaro, the ancient 4 before the 7 great Maharishis. Chatvaro, 4 before them. Tatha also. Manavaha, the Manus. Madbhava, possessed of powers like me. Manasa Jata, they are born, they are created from my mind, born from my mind. Imah, these. Yesham, from whom. Prajaha, the creatures. Loka, in the world. So, the 7 great rishis, the ancient 4 before them, and also the Manus, possessed of powers like me, are born from my mind. And from them, the creatures in the world originated and are sustained. So Ishvara first manifested as Brahma. Brahma also known as Hiranyagarbha in this context. And Hiranyagarbha is pure consciousness, which is Brahman, plus the subtle aspects. That is Hiranyagarbha. From Hiranyagarbha arose the Manasa Jata. Manasa Jata are the 14 Manus. We have read about this earlier also. And the 7 great rishis. And the 4 great rishis before the 7 great rishis. They are said to be directly born through the power of the mind of the Brahma. They are non-yonija. Non-yonija means they do not come from the coupling of the male and the female. They are born directly from the power of the mind of Brahma. So the 7 great rishis are extolled in various places in our texts, in our Vedas, the Upanishads, and all literature. While the Vedic Samhitas, the initial compilation, they do not name these rishis. But the later texts of the Vedas, such as the Upanishads, they name them. But we find different names in different texts. And typically, I think these are related to the Manu. For each Manu, there are different set of 7 rishis. But they are named differently also. And these 7 rishis are regarded as the patriarchs of today's world. And they are the patriarchs who have the revelation of the Vedas. Revelation of the Vedas meaning they have received the Vedas. They are not the authors of the Vedas. They have just received the Vedas, directly received the Vedas. It's termed as Maharishya Veda Mantra Drashtaharaha. Those who have seen the Vedas. For the current Vaivasvata Manu, the 7 great sages are said to be Kashyapa, Atri, Vashishta, Angira or Angirasa, Gautama, Vishwamitra, and Bharadvaja. The earlier 4 rishis are known as the 4 Sanat Kumara. They are Sanaka, Sananda, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumara. These are the 4 rishis before the Saptarishi. And the 14 Manus are the progenitals of humankind. Their descendants or santatis through them, the people who have the santatis that have come through them, they come through Janma Santati or Vidya Santati. Janma Santati means through birth. Vidya Santati through knowledge. Basically, our physical composition is through Janma Santati. And whatever we know that has come in terms of learning, even in our previous birth, which we came in with directly in this birth, they come through the Jnana Santati. And these 14 Manus are Swayambhuva Manu, Swarochisha Manu, Uttama Manu, Tapasa Manu, Raivata Manu, Chakshusa Manu, Vaivasvata Manu. Vaivasvata Manu is the current Manu. We are said to be in the half of Brahma's age, about 51 years of Brahma's age. That's the beauty of Vedantic scriptures. It has calculated the current age of the universe, and it also says that this is the future age of the universe. Whereas, as per science, the current age of the universe has a wide margin of billions of years. So, Vaivasvata Manu, the current Manu, and then to come, Savarni Manu, Daksha Savarni Manu, Brahma Savarni Manu, Dharma Savarni Manu, Rudra Savarni Manu, Deva Savarni Manu, and Indra Savarni Manu. Those are the 14 Manus. And thus Bhagavan says the external world of beings as well as the internal world of thoughts are my manifestations. And one who understands this in this manner, the result of that he describes in the next verse.
Etam vibhutim yogam cha.
Etam vibhutim yogam cha.
Mama yo veti tattvataha.
Mama yo veti tattvataha.
Sovikampena yogena.
Sovikampena yogena.
Yujyate natra samshayaha.
Yujyate natra samshayaha.
Etam vibhutim yogam cha. Mama yo veti tattvataha. Sovikampena yogena. Yujyate natra samshayaha.
Yo veti tattvataha. Yo who, yaha who, veti knows, tattvataha in truth. What? Etam, these, vibhutim, manifold manifestations, cha, and yogam, yoga power, of mind, mama. Yujyate, they become established. Yujyate, yogena, in yoga. Savikampena, sovikampena, saha vikampena, that is unshakable. Atra, here, samshayaha, there is no doubt. Na atra samshayaha, about which here there is no doubt. One who in truth knows these manifold manifestations of mind, the macrocosm, and the yoga power of mind, the microcosm, become established in the unshakable yoga of bhakti. Of this, there is no doubt. Vibhutim, vi plus bhuti is vibhuti. Vi is vividham or manifold. Vi is also vishesha or glorious. Bhutim is bhavana or manifestations. Manifold manifestation, glorious manifestation. That vibhutim. And that yogam, the yoga power of mind, we have seen this earlier also. The auspicious attributes, the opulences, these various expressions of mind, the subtle aspects of mind, that yoga power, the Ishvara of mind, the control of mind, that yoga power. Thus, one who understands that all origination, all sustenance, all of activities depend on him and his glorious, auspicious attributes, such a person becomes steadfast in the yoga of bhakti, which is unshakable in nature. So vikampena yogena yujyate. That faith becomes so strong that the person instinctively, automatically, helplessly surrenders to Bhagavan. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, and I quote, "A lamp cannot burn without oil." Today we can say a bulb cannot light without electricity. Even so, a devotee cannot be bereft of God. Unquote. Thus entrenched in bhakti, with the knowledge of vibhuti, what do these people experience, and what do they do, and what do they experience? That is in the next two verses. We will go through one by one.
Aham sarvasya prabhavah.
Aham sarvasya prabhavah.
Matta sarvam pravartate.
Matta sarvam pravartate.
Iti matva bhajanti mam.
Iti matva bhajante mam.
Bhuta bhava samanvitaha.
Buddha bhava samanvitaha.
Aham sarvasya prabhavah. Matta sarvam pravartate. Iti matva bhajanti mam. Bhuta bhava samanvitaha.
Aham prabhavaha. I am the source. Sarvasya, of all. Matta, from me. Pravartate, emanates. Sarvam, everything. Matva, understanding. Iti, thus. Bhajante mam, worship me. Who? Buddha, the wise. Bhava samanvitaha, endowed with devotion. I am the source of all. From me, everything emanates. Everything comes about. Understanding thus, the wise worship me with the loving devotion, the bhakti bhava. As a plant gets rooted to the soil, knowing very well the soil to be the basis of its origin, basis of its sustenance, and basis of its growth. The plant knows very well, and that is why it forms those strong roots. Similarly, the bhakta gets attached to God, knowing him to be the source of everything. Bhava samanvitaha. Being endowed with bhava is being endowed with a particular disposition. It could be any disposition. Here, bhava means the loving disposition of the mind that leads to intense yearning of the heart. See, this is a very common feature in love. When you are deeply, intensely in love, that loving disposition of the mind leads to yearning in the heart. And that is unshakable bhakti. And what is the experience of such people? We see that in the 9th verse.
Machitta madgata pranaha.
Machitta madgata pranaha.
Bodhayanta parasparam.
Bodhayanta parasparam.
Katayantascha mam nityam.
Katayantascha mam nityam.
Tushyanti cha ramanti cha.
Tushyanti cha ramanti cha.
Machitta madgata pranaha. Bodhayanta parasparam. Katayantascha mam nityam. Tushyanti cha ramanti cha.
Machitta, with their minds wholly in me. Bhagavan has told this earlier also. Machitta, completely, fully absorbed in me. Madgata pranaha. with their lives absorbed in my devotion. The very purpose of their lives is me. In samsara, the mind is hijacked by the world. In bhakti, the mind is hijacked by Bhagavan. Bodhayanta parasparam. Bodhayanta parasparam. Mutually enlightening each other. Thriving in the company of fellow seekers. This is the only kind of love or intense love that one is willing to share. Generally, when a person loves something or someone, a human being or any object, with extreme intensity, then there is intense selfishness also. That intense love and intense selfishness go together. Nobody wants to share what one's love intensely with anyone else. There is no question of such sharing. However, in the case of Bhagavan, Katayantascha mam nityam, the devotees are always speaking of me, sharing my glories. Tushyanticha ramanticha, and are contented and blissful in such sharing. This is the only kind of love that people willingly share. Contented and blissfully share with each other, learn from each other, grow with each other, like we do and like we are in our satsang. Thank you, Hari Om. We will continue in the next satsang.
So we'll repeat verses 1 to 9 of chapter 10. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Atha Dashamodhyayah Vibhuti Yogaha Shri Bhagavanuvacha Bhuya eva Mahabaho Shrinu me Paramam Vachaha Yatti ham Priyamanaya Vakshyami Hitakamyaya Nami Vidussuraganaha Prabhavam Namaharshayah Ahamadirhi Devanam Maharshinam cha Sarvashah Yoma Majamanadim cha Veti Lokamaheshwaram Asammuda Samarteshu Sarva Papai Pramuchyate Buddhi Jnanam Asammoha Shama Satyam Damashamaha Sukham Dukkham Bhavo Bhavaha Bhayam cha bhayamiva cha ahimsa samata tushtihi tapodhanam yasho yashaha bhavanti bhava bhutanam matta eva pratakvidaha maharshaya sapta purve chatvaro manavastata madbhava manasa jataha yesham loka ima prajaha etam vibhutim yogam cha mama yo viti tattvataha so vikampena yogena yujyate natra samshayaha aham sarvasya prabhavah matta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajanti mam buddha bhava samanvitaha Madchitta madgata pranaha bodhayanta parasparam katayantascha mam nityam dushyanti charamanti cha Om asato ma satgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.
Hari Om. Thank you. Any thoughts, comments, questions?
So you were mentioning about this endowed with loving devotion, the mind leads to yearning for God. And about this divine romance, our Alvar, Tirumangai Alvar and Periyalvar sings thousands and thousands of songs in this divine romance.
Right.
The Bhakti Bhavam leads the yearning. They expresses the yearning.
Yearning.
Yeah, yearning for God, the Lord. They imagine themselves as the lady and keeps pouring on verses after verse. There were thousands, more than thousands. Whereas Periyalvar, yesterday we celebrated his birthday, he depicts the Vatsalya Bhava as a motherly affection to God.
Right. Actually, Bhakti Yoga has a lot of the focus is this aspect, the love for God. There is no feminine, masculine there. It's just pure love. That's it. Rama, you're saying something.
Yeah, I don't know if it is connected to this, but it's regarding creation. I think earlier in the second chapter or something, we spoke about Jnana Yoga. At that time, there was a comparison, I think. If only thing that is real is consciousness, pure consciousness, and if the world is mithya, where is the question of creation coming into the picture? Because it's not created. I hope I'm able to express myself properly. I mean, we are talking about creation. So this is probably only Shankara's view. So if the world is a mithya, then where does creation come into the picture? Why does he have to create something? Do you get the point?
Yes, I understood what you're saying. Essentially, the various manifestations, the various expressions, the glorious expressions of Bhagavan are creation for us. We perceive them as elements of creation.
But they're really the manifestations of the Brahman in various forms. And
yes,
for us, it is creation.
Beginning from the Hiranyagarbha, and then we learned in this satsang only, right? Beginning from the Hiranyagarbha, and then the Manus, the Saptarishis, before them the 4 Rishis. So beginning from all of that, the manifestations of the Lord are elements of creation.
And another thing may not be connected. I won't know. Can the mind the mind is something which you're not able to understand. Is it the subtle being? I mean, does a mind survive when the body dies? Is it the mind that survives it? Or the mind also dies with the body?
The body, mind, intellect, all these die with the, I mean, scientifically, it is said that the mind survives the intellect, the brain survives the body a little bit longer. But ultimately,
according to what I understand, whatever you're saying, mind and brain are 2 different things.
Correct. Yeah, so I was just going to come to that. Scientifically, it is said that the brain survives the body a little bit longer. But spiritually, the body, mind, and intellect belong to this created existence, this manifested existence of ours. Whereas the soul is the different. So, I mean, to give an example, we have if you imagine an electricity bulb, Swami Chinmayananda Ji gives a beautiful example. You know, the electricity bulb, it has the glass bulb, it has the element, and it has the gas in between. But just lying there on the table, the bulb is inert. It has no power or nothing. It has no features or aspects of itself. It is just there, an inert existence. But the minute electricity flows through it, is infused into it, it glows. So the body, mind, and intellect are inert. By themselves cannot express themselves. But just like electricity, the soul also, the body, mind, and intellect are inert. The soul by itself cannot express itself. So the combination, when the infusion of the soul happens into the body, mind, and intellect, life is formed. Life comes into being. Just like electricity comes into being, or the light glows when electricity and this are. So the body, mind, and intellect are also prone to birth and death. And
So that-
ultimately, the soul also is going to finish when it attains mukti.
So when the death happens, both the Jivatma and Paramatma leave the body. Is it together, or
So when
we
the
say the inner soul is the Paramatma, Jivatma is there, and the inner soul is the silent soul of the one who. So both of them escape together or leave the body together, or
so the body is the deha. The mind and intellect are part of the deha. That is inert. It is it's in a way, yes, you can say it is the jivatma, the individual existence. But the actual jivatma is the soul. The
Jivatma is the
jivatma is
soul.
not body, mind, intellect.
No,
Jivatma is not
Jivatma
body.
here
mind,
you're saying is that Atman is the Paramatma.
The Paramatma is the eternal soul that we have just talked about. That is the eternal soul, one who has no cause.
Yeah, that I followed. So the Paramatma and Jivatma are not together inside us. Is it only the Jivatma?
Correct. And there are various philosophies, no, that while we are existing in this world, it is only the Jivatma. But there are philosophies which says that at some point in time, the ultimate realization is when they become one. Some say that they don't become.
They
We have
discussed.
the philosophies earlier also.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for confusing.
No, it's not. Any other thoughts? Okay, if no other thoughts, my request is to go through these verses more than once because of two reasons. One is, it's obviously, Bhagavan himself says I have to explain again, I have to elaborate again. So only when we go through again and again and again, the clarity comes. That is one reason. The other reason is the beauty of bhakti. It is a fact that when we go through it again and again and again, the bhakti completely, flowers, it blooms. So my request is, if you can go through these verses again, it will be nice. Thank you. Hari Om. We'll meet next Saturday.